Friday's press launch was a spectacular affair, but it lacked one vital ingredient, the price at which British Telecom will be selling its 3 billion shares. We won't know that until Friday, the 16th of November, when the price is formally announced. Then, on the 20th of November, applications open for the shares. And finally, on the 28th of November at 10 a.m., applications close.
If you're thinking of buying, you're going to need at least £250, but you won't have to pay it all at once. Next month, you'll have to pay £100. Then in June next year, another £75. And in April 1986, you'll be asked for the last £75.
In return for every £250, you get a tax-free £18 voucher to help pay your telephone bill. And when you add to that the rough estimate of a 7% dividend, the first year's return could be 17%. And that compares pretty favourably with other investments. A National Savings Investment account is currently worth 12%. Building societies are offering the equivalent of 14% gross to the standard rate taxpayer. So if British Telecom does return 17% before tax, that could seem a good deal.
In 3 weeks' time, when we know the exact share price, it'll probably be somewhere around 125 pence, we'll be giving our advice on whether or not you should take the plunge. The government hopes hundreds of thousands of small savers will, and so reverse the dramatic decline in the number of private investors on the stock exchange. It's dropped from 1963, when 54% of the shares were owned by private investors. By 1975, the figure was 37.5%, and in 1981, it was down to 28.2%.
One reason is it's more difficult and costly to buy shares in Britain than in America, where you can buy shares over the counter without having to go near a broker.
But the British Telecom issue is being handled in the traditional way, through banks and brokers who stand to make 2% commission on every small investor they attract.
Michael Montague, presumably you would like British investors to be able to go into a store anywhere in the high street and buy those same British Telecom shares over the counter.
I think going into a store is perhaps going a little far, but I certainly would like them to go into a post office, definitely into a bank, and even, not quite so novel, perhaps, a building society. At the moment, the whole thing is done in a faceless manner. It's all done on the telephone. That's how you make contact with brokers. We've also got to remember about these shares that they're not bearer shares. There's going to have to be a register. It's not as though you can just go somewhere and exchange them for money, so it's quite complicated. I think of the three that I've mentioned, the one I favour most is the building societies. Perhaps that is because we know from our research that they're regarded as the most friendly of all.
Let me ask you this. Where do you think this market is going to be? Because we've seen a decline already in that item we've just done in private shareholding in this country. And one of the reasons for that, there are two reasons, really. One, a lot of more people are putting their money into building societies because they know the institutions and they trust them. They're also putting them into unit trusts. But do you really think there is a market for people going into the post office, for example, and buying, say, a couple of hundred ICOs?
I think there will be, as long as the technology is there for instant transactions. That means that you've got to be able to have a title obtained at that time and affect a market at that time. Let's think at the moment what happens in the post office when you go to sell gilt-edged. You say you want to sell it, they say they'll sell it for you. Later on, they do the transaction at a price which only becomes clear afterwards. Now, that's unsatisfactory, and that you can't have with shares. I personally believe that lots of small investors will go into British Telecom. It's going to be really most attractive. And therefore, what's got to be easy is that once they've bought the shares, later on they can sell them, because that must be what it's all about.
But forgetting about British Telecom for a moment, you're talking about shares in general,
yes.
equities in general.
Yes.
How will the average man in the street, who's got £500 suddenly in his pocket, has always been a building society man, for example, know what to buy when he goes into a post office and see what's on offer?
Well, he's got to have advice. I mean, there've got to be counters in building societies, banks and post offices to whom you can talk, with whom you can have a discussion. And maybe that's asking a little bit of the post office.
Well, it's asking for a lot of expertise.
It certainly is, and I don't think it's too much for the building societies. In fact, some of the building societies have announced that they're going to do it already, and that's very encouraging.
Just as important, how will the man in the street know whether he's getting the right price?
Well, you can never know. As one who's bought and sold shares myself, and regretted
Well,
both. You can never, it's a matter of judgment. All I know is that the moment I've bought them, they go down, and the moment I've sold them, they go up.
You're not selling your case very well, you know.
Well, one must remember that buying and selling shares has an element of speculation in it.
Yes, but what I'm saying is this, that there will come a time, of course, when you will get coast-to-coast exposure in this country and elsewhere, or where you can pick up ICI at different prices. You say, that's the price I want. Now, we're very far away from that at the moment. When it comes, he'll be all right, I would suggest, but it's a long way away.
I don't think it's so long. I would think that within 2 or 3 years we will have it. The key is communications. One building society already has announced that they are going to have terminals where they will have the instant information, where you can effect instant trading. But one of the things you're going to have to prove, which mustn't be forgotten, you've got to prove that you've got title to the shares. After all, just taking in the bit of paper in itself won't be enough.
Michael Montague, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This week has seen a political row on both sides of the Atlantic about airfares, with the big airlines being challenged by some brash newcomers and the